Let's start from the beginning. Today, I'm playing Fallout 4 with one goal: to become the most tactical man alive. To do that, I'll need guns. Lots of guns. And Fallout 4's base guns just won't do. So, with the power of modding, I've added a plethora of modern weapons to the game. I'll be playing on the game's hardest difficulty, survival mode. This means enemies hit hard, hunger and thirst needs to be kept track of, and saving is impossible unless you sleep. Even with fancy guns and gear, this is going to be a painful experience. So, let's begin. I named my character Cost Krista, a completely original name, with no connection to anyone in real life.
My name's Chris Costa, and I run Costa Ludus.
I told a salesman to go away, witnessed a nuclear explosion, got sent underground, watched my wife get shot in the head, and my son get kidnapped. You know, the usual. My journey really began in my hometown, except 200 years after a nuclear explosion. So, with my recently acquired 10mm pistol, I got to work clearing the town of the mutated bugs that infested it. The 10mm pistol has been a staple of the Fallout series for a long time. In Fallout lore, 10mm is said to have been a very common type of ammunition, and the 10mm pistol, a ubiquitous and modular handgun. But what exactly is 10mm? The 10x25mm round is a handgun cartridge. In the wake of a deadly FBI shooting that claimed the lives of 2 agents, it was found that the standard issued 9mm round lacked sufficient penetration to immediately incapacitate the criminals. As a result, the FBI began looking for a more powerful handgun round, and after a series of tests, the 10mm round was chosen. However, response to the new round was mixed. While it was certainly powerful, it came at a cost. The recoil was too much for some agents to handle, and if you miss, it doesn't matter what magic bullet you have. These days, the FBI and most professional users of handguns have gone back to 9mm due to its lower recoil and its ability to incapacitate human targets. It's been a mainstay in our world. But, in the Fallout world, things are a little different. Sure, you'll go up against humans, but you'll also face cockroaches, ghouls, murderous robots, and these things. Having a pistol with a little more punch makes sense in this universe. So, I continued on. My next stop was the town of Concord. On the way, I found a dog and put the 10mm to work once again. Arriving at Concord, I was greeted by an odd sound, and my first human enemy. The 10mm pistol handled them relatively well, though some of its limitations were beginning to show. The iron sights, especially at night, are somewhat difficult to see, and the pistol has no place to mount a light. What I needed was a modular handgun that could attach a flashlight and different set of sights. What I needed was a Glock. But we'll get to that later. What I was provided with instead was a laser musket. It's a weird weapon. After all, it's a musket that fires lasers. It makes a cool sound, and it seems to hit hard. But I don't like it for one significant reason. To fire the weapon, you need to hand crank the weapon before each shot. This is incredibly annoying. Firearm technology has advanced to the point where almost all modern weapons are semi-automatic. That is, the user only needs to pull the trigger again to fire another round. This is not only a significant advancement in technology, but a requirement for most guns that are to be used in any serious capacity. So, I cleared the building, then threw away the laser musket as soon as possible. After talking to Preston Garvey, who had told me to pick up power armor and a minigun, I noticed something on one of the desks. An AK in particular, an AKS-74U. I promptly ignored all of Preston's instructions and ran out the door with my new AK, and it felt good. However, I quickly ran into an issue. I didn't have much ammo. After realizing that my measly 45 rounds would not last very long, I went back into the museum for the power armor and minigun. The minigun has been a staple of action movies and video games alike for years, though it's no wonder it's present in Fallout 4 as well. In the real world, the M134 minigun was a weapon designed by General Electric. Yes, the same General Electric that makes these. A machine gun that uses an electric motor to rotate between 6 different barrels. The minigun is capable of firing up to 6,000 rounds per minute without overheating. Due to the weight of the minigun and its ammo, the weapon is usually mounted on a vehicle or stationary mount of some kind. Having a singular person fire the weapon and reload it would be practically impossible, even with superhuman strength from something like power armor. But in Fallout 4, I'm not bound by the laws of physics. So, I took the minigun and prepared to fight a Deathclaw. While I could move, shoot and reload on my own with the minigun, I couldn't do it very fast. This proved to be a problem, so I died again and again and again. The only way I could beat this Deathclaw was to walk in and out of this building. Since it can't fit through the door, I shot it as it tried to figure out which way it needed to walk to murder me. Eventually, it died. Not the epic confrontation Bethesda had probably intended, but it worked. Afterwards, Preston, the leader of a group called the Minutemen, invited me to join their group. Initially, I was hesitant. I wanted to be a free man and shoot whoever I wanted. But then, they described who they were. Citizen soldiers, a desire to preserve their own safety. Sounds pretty base to me. So, I joined. I was immediately tasked with helping other settlements get established. Most people find these annoying, but I was actually looking forward to them. For one, killing raiders is always fun. And more importantly, they have a chance to spawn some of the modern weapons I wanted to use. With that in mind, I set out. At the first settlement, I was tasked by a farmer with killing some raiders and finding a locket that once belonged to his late daughter. On my way, I ran into some raiders. I could have sneaked past them, but I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to shoot some people. To do this, I used a pipe pistol chambered in .38 Special. This gun appears to be a makeshift weapon that had been created from various random parts. It can shoot bullets, but that's about it. The sights are way too wide, the gun is inaccurate, and most importantly, it looks ugly. Homemade firearms have been around for a while. In the early days of the American colonies, many rifles were homemade before the advent of mass production. And in this day and age of heavily restricted firearms, some who disagree with these regulations have continued the human tradition of creating weapons to defend themselves. From guns MacGyvered together using off-the-shelf parts, to 3D printed guns, people have an inherent need to defend themselves, and will do anything to satisfy that need. So, it's no surprise that such weapons make an appearance in Fallout 4. Continuing on, I arrived at the raiders' location, where I was greeted by several mutant dogs and a mole rat strapped with explosives. Heading into the building, I fought more raiders, including a minigun welding boss. It was a tough fight, but the 10mm pistol and a Molotov cocktail did the job. I returned the locket and completed the quest. But unfortunately, none of the raiders had any guns I wanted to use. If I ever wanted to see any of those guns, I was going to have to kill a lot more raiders. So, I went and killed more raiders. During my travels, I ran into these two individuals. I didn't like how they looked at me, so the 10mm pistol handled that. As a result, I got access to this trader. Scrolling through her items, I found it. The Glock 19X. The only problem was, I couldn't afford it. So, I went off to do more quests and to kill more raiders. I made my way to yet another raider camp and blasted my way in. Upon killing the final raider, she dropped this, an AR-15 chambered in .38 Special. The AR-15 is one of the most popular rifles in the world, but AR-15s chambered in pistol calibers are less popular. The Colt 9mm SMG is a firearm chambered in 9mm, while retaining much of the controls and looks of the AR-15. The main practical use of such a weapon is that anyone familiar with AR-15 controls will understand the majority of controls on the 9mm version. Though it hasn't seen widespread use, there are some notable users of the weapon, such as the US Marines, US Marshals Service, and the US Diplomatic Security Service. In Fallout 4, obtaining this weapon is very beneficial. .38 Special is a very common round, but the weapons that fire them aren't great. But this weapon is very neat. With 26 round mags and many different types of attachments, this gun would be a great platform to use all the .38 Special I was collecting off dead raiders. While this was a far cry from what I wanted to look like, I was getting there. Traveling back to my home base, I ran into a wandering trader. While looking through her inventory, I saw it, the Glock 19X. I could afford it, but just barely. I immediately added all the upgrades I could on the Glock. And with that, I was ready to take on the wasteland with my new pistol.